Imagine walking into your own billion-dollar headquarters before sunrise, only to catch a single-dad janitor doing something so shocking, so unexpected, that it stops you mid-breath. You think he's stealing. You think he's hiding something. But what you discover instead is a truth that will flip your entire world upside down. For those who love emotional, powerful real-life stories, welcome to Brain Fuel. Here, we share the stories that make your heart race, your eyes widen, and your soul feel something real. If you're new, hit subscribe, because today's story will stay with you long after it ends. Stop right there. The shout cracked through the empty corporate hallway like thunder. The janitor jerked, nearly dropping the metal bucket in his hand. His daughter clung to his side, startled by the sudden noise. And standing at the far end of the corridor, backlit by the early morning sun pouring through the tall glass windows, was the last woman anyone expected to see before sunrise. Ariana Sterling, billionaire, owner of the building, CEO of Sterling Industries. A woman so powerful that entire boardrooms went silent when she walked in. And right now, her sharp eyes were laser-focused on the janitor and the tiny child beside him. Neither of them moved. Ariana's heels echoed across the gleaming marble floor as she approached, her presence overwhelming in the silent building. She never came to the office at this hour. Never. Billionaires didn't roam their own offices at dawn. But today was different. She had something to prove, and the universe placed this unexpected scene directly in front of her. Lucas Hart, the janitor, swallowed hard as she approached. His uniform was faded, and his shoes had clearly seen better days. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and hands roughened from hours of labor. But more striking than his worn appearance was the little girl beside him. A tiny thing, maybe 6 or 7, with messy ponytails and big brown eyes that watched Ariana like she was some mythical creature. She wore an oversized hand-me-down sweater, and her small backpack was patched in 3 places. She clutched her father's leg like she was afraid the world might snatch her away. Ariana stopped only a few feet from them. Her voice dropped, cold and controlled. "Explain." Lucas tried to speak, but the words stuck. His heart raced because he knew exactly how this looked. Company rules were strict. Children weren't allowed in the building, ever. And being caught by the owner? This could mean instant termination. I am sorry, Miss Sterling," Lucas stammered. "I didn't mean to break any rules." Ariana raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. She was intimidating even in silence. The janitor took a breath and held his daughter closer. "My babysitter didn't show up this morning," he explained. "I tried calling 3 others, no one answered, and I couldn't lose another shift. I can't afford it. So I brought my daughter for an hour, just until my neighbor wakes up. She won't bother anyone." Ariana cut him off. "This is a billion-dollar headquarters, Mr. Hart, not a daycare. Why would you think this is acceptable?" Her tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of 1,000 consequences. The little girl hid her face in her father's uniform. Lucas wished the ground would swallow him, not because of the fear of punishment, but because he hated the idea of his daughter being frightened. He hadn't wanted to bring her here. He had no choice. Rent was due. Food needed buying. And losing this job, that would break everything. "I'm trying," Lucas whispered, voice cracking. "I'm doing my best. It's just hard. Alone." Ariana blinked. A flicker, a tiny flicker, of something human passing through her expression. But just as quickly, it vanished. "What's her name?" she asked. "Emma," he said quietly. The little girl peeked out shyly. Ariana held her gaze for a moment. Then she straightened, her tone shifting back to cool professionalism. "Follow me." Lucas froze. His stomach twisted. Was she escorting him off the premises? Was he being fired on the spot? But Ariana didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked down the hallway with brisk purpose. Lucas hesitated, then lifted his daughter into his arms and followed, the bucket swinging against his leg. They walked past the executive elevators, the portraits of past CEOs, the spotless glass doors of the marketing department. The building felt even bigger than usual, almost intimidatingly quiet. It was just the three of them in a building meant for thousands. Lucas had cleaned these corridors hundreds of times, but being led through them like this, by the owner of the entire company, felt surreal. Every step felt heavier than the last. Emma laid her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Daddy, are you in trouble?" He kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart, Daddy's just talking to the boss." But he wasn't sure if that was the truth. His stomach twisted with each step. Ariana finally reached her private office, one of the most luxurious in the city. A massive glass wall overlooked downtown, with the sunrise casting gold across the skyline. The desk alone probably cost more than Lucas made in 3 months. "Come in," Ariana said. Lucas stepped inside carefully, trying not to disturb anything. He'd cleaned this office hundreds of times, but only from the outside, never like this. Emma stared wide-eyed at the huge room. "Sit," Ariana ordered. Lucas sat on the edge of the chair, his daughter curled tightly in his arms. His broken mop leaned against his knee. The wooden handle snapped halfway. Ariana's gaze drifted to it. "What happened to your equipment?" she asked. Lucas inhaled sharply, embarrassed. "It broke 2 nights ago," he admitted. "I told the supervisor, but he said replacements aren't in the budget right now." Ariana's eyes narrowed. "Not in the budget? For a mop? In a company worth billions?" She turned away as if processing the absurdity of it. For the first time since she saw her in the hallway, Lucas sensed a different kind of anger, one not aimed at him. But suddenly, something caught her eye. Emma had quietly slipped off Lucas's lap and was coloring on a stack of sticky notes using Lucas's only pen. She was drawing 2 stick figures holding hands, a father and a daughter. Ariana stared at the picture longer than she meant to. Something about it struck her. Something in the simplicity, the innocence, something she hadn't felt in years. She finally spoke again, but her voice was softer this time. "You brought her because you had no choice," she said. Lucas nodded silently. Ariana exhaled slowly, crossing her arms. She didn't say what she was thinking, not yet. She didn't reveal the memories flashing through her mind of her own mother working 3 jobs, or the nights she spent alone when she was the same age as Emma. Instead, she simply said, "Tell me everything." And for the first time since she caught him in the hallway, Lucas felt a flicker of hope. Lucas sat stiffly in the leather chair across from Ariana Sterling, feeling as though he had somehow stepped into another universe. He'd cleaned this office hundreds of times, always from the outside, gently wiping the fingerprint-smudged glass desk and dusting around the large awards that sat proudly on the shelves. But sitting inside, as a guest, or perhaps a suspect, was something entirely different. Emma sat on his lap now, her little arms wrapped around his neck like she was protecting him instead of the other way around. She could sense the tension. Children always could. Ariana stood at the window, arms crossed, as she looked out over the sunrise-lit city. The golden light touched her face, highlighting the sharpness of her features, not just beautiful but commanding, like someone carved from ambition and steel. People often called her cold, ruthless, unreachable. But at that moment, Lucas sensed something heavier hiding behind her silence, something thoughtful. Finally, she turned back to him. You said she wasn't supposed to be here, Ariana said. Yet here she is. You must have known the consequences. Lucas straightened a little, choosing honesty even though it scared him. I did, he admitted, but when you're a single parent, you don't always get choices. Sometimes you just make the least wrong decision and hope it doesn't ruin everything. Ariana studied him with unsettling precision. How long have you been working here? 8 months. I took the job right after my wife passed. Ariana's gaze softened almost invisibly. Almost. What happened? She asked. Lucas lowered his eyes. Heart condition. Sudden. She collapsed in front of her daughter. By the time the ambulance came, it was too late. The room fell painfully quiet. Emma, who had been tracing patterns on his father's uniform, froze and whispered, I miss Mommy. Lucas hugged her tightly, eyes glistening but refusing to fall apart in front of a billionaire stranger. Ariana cleared her throat softly. I'm sorry, she said, the words sounding unfamiliar in her mouth, as if she didn't say them often. Lucas nodded, grateful but still tense. Sympathy didn't guarantee safety. Ariana walked closer, examining his broken mop leaning against the chair. Why is your equipment in this condition? She asked again, her tone shifting toward irritation, but this time it wasn't irritation at Lucas, it was irritation at the situation. It broke, Lucas explained. Last week. I reported it 3 times. And they didn't replace it. They said it wasn't in the cleaning budget this quarter. Ariada's expression transformed from cool curiosity into something sharp and dangerous. Not in the budget, she repeated, almost laughing in disbelief. This company has a budget for napkin dispensers in the conference rooms, and there's no budget for a janitor's mop? Lucas wasn't sure if he should answer, so he just remained quiet. Emma slid off his lap and walked over to Ariana's desk like it was the most normal thing in the world. She saw a stack of sticky notes, grabbed one, then borrowed her father's pen and plopped down on the carpet to continue her drawing. Ariana watched her, watched the tiny child sitting on the floor of a billionaire's office like she belonged there. What is she drawing? Ariana asked. Lucas looked embarrassed. She likes drawing families. Most kids draw houses. She draws me and her every time. Ariana stepped closer and peeked. 2 stick figures again. One taller, one smaller, holding hands under a crooked sun. For a moment, something unguarded flickered across Ariana's face. A memory, perhaps. Something buried. Something she didn't speak of. She looked at Lucas again. Why didn't you pursue something better? She asked. Why a janitor job? Lucas straightened, his voice careful but honest. I didn't choose this. I fell into it. Before Emma's mother passed, I was in school, studying engineering. I had 1 year left, but hospital bills wiped everything clean. Debt came next, and then, well, I needed something that paid immediately, something that didn't require a degree. I needed to be home with Emma as much as possible. Ariana paced slowly. You were studying engineering, she repeated, as though turning the words over in her mind. Lucas nodded. Ariana stopped pacing and looked him directly in the eyes. Do you regret leaving school? She asked. Every day, Lucas admitted. But Emma needed me more than I needed a diploma. That answer hit her harder than he realized. Ariana crossed her arms, leaning back against her desk. My mother, she said slowly, worked 3 jobs when I was little. She did everything she could, but I was alone most of the time. I hated it. I hated feeling like I was raising myself. Lucas blinked, surprised she was sharing something personal. And I promised myself, she continued, that if I ever ran a company, no employee would ever have to choose between their job and their child." Her voice broke just a fraction, just enough to show she meant it. Then she looked around her own office, as if realizing how far she had drifted from that promise. "How long has the cleaning staff been working with broken tools?" she asked abruptly. "Months, maybe. They keep saying the budget is tight." "Tight," she scoffed softly. "Tight for a multi-billion-dollar corporation." She opened her laptop and typed something furiously, emails firing off one after another. Her frustration was no longer hidden. Lucas watched silently. He couldn't tell if all of this was good or terrible news for him. Ariana finally closed the laptop and looked at him again. "You said your babysitter didn't come," she said. "Is that common?" "More common than it should be. People don't like taking early morning jobs, and I can't afford the good ones. So, yeah, it happens. And when it happens, you risk your job to keep your daughter safe." Lucas nodded simply. She studied father and daughter again. Lucas, exhausted, underpaid, doing everything he could. Emma, small, innocent, drawing sunshine with borrowed pounds. Ariana's voice softened in a way Lucas hadn't expected. "What do you want, Mr. Hart? Not what you need. What do you wish for if life ever gave you a chance?" Lucas hesitated, then answered, "I want to give my daughter a life she doesn't have to recover from." Ariana inhaled deeply. She had caught a janitor breaking company rules, but what she saw was a father fighting for his child, and it shook something inside her deeply. Ariana didn't say a word after Lucas confessed his wish. She stared at him, as though seeing him for the very first time, not as a janitor, not as an employee, but as a man carrying the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. A father who had forgotten to dream for himself because survival took up all the space where dreams used to live. She stood up suddenly, her chair sliding back with a soft scrape. "Come with me," she said. Lucas blinked. "Ma'am?" "Bring Emma, and the mop," she added, flicking her eyes toward the broken stick leaning against the chair. "You'll need it." Lucas didn't understand a single part of that instruction, but he obeyed. He scooped Emma up onto his hip and grabbed the broken mop like it was some kind of strange passport to wherever she was taking them. Ariana walked quickly, her heels tapping across the marble as they cut through the silent hallways of Sterling Industries. The sky outside was brighter now, morning settling in, the city awakening. But inside the building it still felt like the world was holding its breath. They entered the elevator, and Ariana pressed the button for the 12th floor. Lucas swallowed. "Isn't that the engineering department?" "Yes." He hesitated. "Ma'am, I don't work in engineering anymore." Her eyes flicked toward him sharply. "Let me decide that." The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing a massive floor buzzing with screens, inventions, cables, robotic prototypes, and engineers wearing badges and focused expressions. This was the heart of the company, the brain. The place where ideas were born and transformed into products that changed the world. And now a janitor with a child on his hip and a broken mop in his hand was stepping into it. Heads turned immediately. Conversations halted. Mugs hovered halfway to lips. Engineers stared like aliens had entered the lab. Ariana didn't care. She walked straight to a long metal table in the center of the room. Sitting on it was a prototype robot, one that Lucas recognized. He had seen engineers huddling around it late at night, frustrated and exhausted. It had been malfunctioning for weeks. Ariana tapped the metal frame of the robot. "This," she said, "has been broken for 3 months. Lucas nodded, remembering how many times he'd seen it smoking, clanking, or sparking. She continued, "Our top engineers can't figure out why. The board is about to cut the entire project because of it." She turned to Lucas. "Fix it." Lucas almost dropped the mop. "What?" Emma gasped. "Daddy, you can fix robots?" Lucas rubbed his neck awkwardly. "Honey, it's not that simple. I haven't done engineering work in years. I don't even remember everything anymore." Ariana crossed her arms. "Try." There was something in her tone. Not impatience, not arrogance, but belief. A belief he didn't even have in himself anymore. Lucas took a deep breath. He gently set Emma down on a nearby chair, where she swung her legs and watched him with giant, hopeful eyes. Then he approached the robot. The room fell silent as he inspected it. He ran his fingers along the wiring, testing the sensors, checking the relay lines, and examining the circuit board. It came back to him in pieces, muscle memory waking up like a long sleeping beast. He leaned closer, listening. The engineers watched. Ariana watched. Emma hugged her knees to her chest, whispering, "Go, Daddy." 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Finally, Lucas reached into the robot with steady hands and adjusted the power distribution grid. He reconnected a loose sensor wire. Then he tightened an internal bolt that was misaligned. Small, simple corrections. He stepped back. And then the robot blinked. Lights flickered. The machine hummed to life. Its arms moved smoothly, its head rotating without the grinding sound that had plagued it for months. The entire floor froze. One engineer dropped his tablet. Another whispered, "No way." A third shook his head in disbelief. "We tried everything. How did he—" Ariana's eyes widened, not in shock, but in realization. He didn't just fix their 3-month problem. He fixed it in under 20 minutes, with a broken mop still tucked under his arm. Lucas rubbed his hands nervously on his uniform. It was a simple issue," he explained shyly. "The power relay was misaligned and the internal sensor grid had a loose connection. Anyone could have done it." The room erupted simultaneously. "No, they couldn't. That was the problem? We missed that. This guy is insane. I told you it wasn't the algorithm." Ariana stepped closer to Lucas, her gaze unwavering. "Lucas Hart, would you accept a full-time engineering position here at Sterling Industries?" He froze. Silence swallowed the room. Emma's eyes lit up like fireworks. "Me?" Lucas stuttered. "Ma'am, I'm a janitor." "You were," Ariana corrected, "but that was a misuse of your talent. Starting today, if you accept, you will join the engineering team. You'll receive full benefits, a competitive salary, and a flexible schedule." Lucas felt his vision blur with tears. Why would you do this for me?" Ariana gave him a rare smile, small but real. "Because I didn't catch you breaking rules," she said softly. "I caught you being a father, a man who refuses to quit, a man who brought his daughter to work because she needed him. And then I saw something else." She gestured toward the rejuvenated robot. "Potential, talent, intelligence, and heart." Emma ran to her father and threw her arms around him. Ariana wasn't done. She said, "There's one more thing. This company is opening an on-site childcare center, effective immediately. No employee should ever have to choose between their work and their child." Lucas's breath shuddered. Miss Sterling, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," she replied. "Just do for this company what you did for that robot, and keep being the father you are." Lucas nodded, tears finally spilling down his cheeks as he hugged Emma tight. Ariana extended her hand. "Welcome to the engineering team." Lucas shook it with trembling fingers, and for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, he felt like the world was finally giving him a chance. And Emma? She smiled as bright as the sunrise over the city, because her daddy wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was a man who had been seen,